Hey guys, what's up? Public back with another video, and this is the first video after Shadowlands has now been released. I know it's been a little quiet on the channel. Forgive me, I've just been honestly just swamped with having fun in Shadowlands, doing a lot of stuff, playing my alts. I've got almost 3 level 60s, which is really fun. I know you guys have a lot of questions. I've been trying to answer as much as possible, and I think the main reason why I haven't done a lot of videos is I haven't really known what to talk about. But there's been a kind of resounding thing that I've seen in the last couple days that I really wanted to address, which is simming yourselves. I know a lot of you guys have either maybe joined Shadow Priest from a different spec or different class and are a little confused as far as how we sim for Shadow Priest on Warcraft Priest team, and then really just answer the question of how do you sim your character the best way possible, because I bet you're probably not doing it right. And maybe you don't even know what sims are. So in this video, I'm going to go over all that stuff and tell you how to sim yourself best for your Shadow Priest. All right, let's get started. Okay, so if you don't know, myself and others developed this program called Simcraft. It's an open source tool that myself and others work on. Generally speaking, it's a kind of complex machine, but for the most part, it can be used to help simulate your character in various raid or dungeon environments, right? It's only going to be as good as the question you're asking it, right? So it's a very specific thing, which is why you want to be careful about how you use it. You don't want to mislead yourself or give yourself bad information. So in this video, I want to kind of go over what you should be doing to get the most value out of this. Now, I'm definitely going to mention without a doubt that if you do want to sim your character, you should be using raidbots.com. Highly, highly recommend this resource. One, it's great, it's easy to use, it's free, and more importantly, it's just better usually than running it yourself. You can also download an actual program to run on your computer as well, but you'd want to update this like every day or so because we constantly push updates to the program, which Raidbots does for you. So I'll leave a link in the description. If you haven't checked out Raidbots, please do. Give them any support you can. It's an amazing website. We use it for all of our sims. Now, before I move on, I do kind of want to mention, I think a lot of people are missimming their characters, right? So if you're currently simming yourself and you've been doing this for a while, I'm willing to bet you're probably doing something a little wrong or not the best, and that's just how you're tuning your sim. A lot of people are, simply put, just running patchwork, one target, 5-minute sims, right? Which is okay if that's what you care about, right? If you only care about hitting a single target and nothing else, no movement, no handling mechanics, no ads, right? That's fine, but you got to understand that that really doesn't exist in the raid, and those kind of events can drastically change optimizations for your character, right? And this is very, very important, especially on a Shadow Priest, because we do have some ways of handling movement. We do have some, we might want to pool cooldowns for ads that are coming soon, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's very important to get a much more holistic view of a sim in terms of like what you're trying to do. If like it's like a gear upgrade or like a talent swap, you want to be very, very specific about it, because frankly put, patchwork is not in Castle Nathria. That's Nax Ramus, right? We're not raiding Nax Ramus. So this can honestly just lead to poor optimization of your character. So let's talk about what you can do to get better than just patchwork single target. So for context here, all the Warcraft pre-sims, and I know I've done videos on the kind of sim charts in the past, you've probably all noticed that those are all run with what we call composite simming. So composite simming is aimed at solving this exact problem. We actually sim 18 different times for every single set of sims. And that 18 sets of sims is changing things like how much movement there is, how many boss targets there are, how many ads there are, right? And we kind of take all those combinations and then weight them against how often they show up inside of Castle Nathria. And that's how we get this kind of composite sim number. It's our way of kind of approximating like what's better for the overall raid rather than just like one specific fight or two, which is especially helpful for like early gearing when you do have to kind of make a decision of like, hey, I can only craft one legendary. What should I craft that's better for the entire raid, right? Rather than just hyper optimizing for just one boss, which might be helpful depending on what you're trying to do, but that's the point of composite simming. Now, with that, we also give kind of a hybrid single target sim, so we don't just do patchwork one target, we also sim movement with that, and again, kind of weight and combine that against each other. So the single target's a little bit different as well. And then last but not least, I did kind of want to mention, this is going to be a wild card here, is dungeon simming. So dungeon simming is very challenging, mainly because there are just too many variables that change how you do a dungeon, whether it's the affixes will change, like if you're fortified versus tyrannical, bosses will live longer, maybe you want more boss damage, maybe some of the affixes change how big you can pull, or maybe they change how much downtime is between pulls, or even if you have a different group composition, that could change how you pull things. So we do have an idea of how to get started here, which is the dungeon slice fight type. It's still a work in progress, guys. It does some things well, it does other things not so well, so definitely take it with a grain of salt. Dungeon Simming is going to be a little awkward. We'll talk about that in a little bit of how you can do a little bit better than that. So, but that's how Warcraft pre-sims, just to give you context. Now, of course, you know, simming yourself 18 times every time that you want to check for a gear upgrade, obviously that's a lot, and I don't suggest people do that because that's pretty extreme, if I'm being honest. What I would do personally, use the Warcraft Priest charts as kind of your target, right? Of like saying, oh, hey, the wrist, Eternal Call to the Void Legendary is what I want to go for. Let me start working towards that, right? That's what it should be used for. But if you're kind of trying to hyper optimize, saying like, are these gloves better than these or whatever, right? That's where you kind of want to do a bit more in-depth stuff yourself if you want to really know the correct answer to that question. So here's what I would suggest, guys. And again, you can tweak this to what you want and what you're looking for, but I just want to make you guys aware that these options do exist on raid bots or in the CMC client, and I think you should definitely take full advantage of them. So first things first, you definitely want to be still simming patchwork, that's okay, but also mix in other things like light movement, which is another sim that actually moves your actor, or the sim person that we're in there is called an actor. It moves your character to simulate like kind of like handling a mechanic or moving to one phase versus the other. We don't weight this super heavily because you can pre-move for that, so keep that in mind. But simming patchwork and light movement on 1 and 2 targets is a just baseline already much better than just doing patchwork. You could also mix in, there's a sim called heavy movement. I would caution against doing this too much just because heavy movement is going to be pretty brutal about, you know, when it's moving mechanics. So heavy movement I would consider more akin to like a phase change to where, you know, your character is literally sitting there doing nothing for a very long period of time, like, you know, 10, 15 seconds, something like that. So be a little careful about that sim. Now, another one that's actually been added to raid bots and SimC kind of recently is Cleave Add. So this is actually just, again, it's exactly what it says. It's a single boss that has a Cleave Add that comes in. It's actually pretty viable for a lot of fights inside of Castle Nathria. I know if you're talking about like Huntsman, that's a good one. Other ones have similar fights like that. So doing Cleave Add with 1 target is going to be great for a fight like that. You could also change it to 2 target for a boss like Blood Council. Overall, just a great fight to really start handling adds and do things like that. And then speaking of ads, again, Mythic Plus, you know, we mentioned Dungeon Slice is an okay place to start. I will say Dungeon Slice is a much better fight type than Hectic Ad Cleave. Excuse me, Hectic Ad Cleave is just kind of craziness. I wouldn't recommend anyone use it. Yes, we support it, but man, it's just a bad sim. I don't like it at all. Dungeon Slice, we do fully support. If you don't know what Dungeon Slice is, it's basically one long sim that goes from like, okay, hey, you're fighting 3 targets. Now you're fighting 5. Now you have a boss mob. Now you're waiting in between pulls, right? It kind of tries to do all of that in one. Again, it's just kind of a generic approximation. It's not going to work for everything. And again, it's very generic, so keep that in mind. If you want to, again, kind of hyper optimize for a dungeon environment, you can try doing Cleave Add or light movement with 3 to 5 targets, and then just lower the duration to like 20 seconds, 40 seconds, something like that. The struggle with doing something like that is it's going to assume that you have your cooldowns for every pull, so keep that in mind. And then by default, any sim that is not Dungeon Slice is going to give you things like Bloodlust, Demon Hunter buff, Windwalker buff, all that stuff, right? So you can always change that in the options below inside of raidbots or in the SimC client. So make sure that you're checking those options, because those are probably not valid assumptions to have Bloodlust and everything for every single pull that you're doing. So keep that in mind. It's just kind of a way to get started, though. And again, that's going to give you much better results than doing something like just patchwork to figure out that stuff, right? Now, moving on here, another thing I do want to caution very heavily against you guys using is stat weights. I know this has been kind of taboo. A lot of you have been using stat weights for years now to kind of help determine upgrades inside of the game. I think this is an old style of thing. I don't recommend anyone do it anymore. Stat weights are such volatile, and they're literally just a snapshot in time of your stats right now, and they're just guesses, right? They're effectively just saying, oh, well, if we move these stats around, how does this work, and what's the value of DPS when we do that, right? Which can be okay, but you got to think that, you know, you're changing multiple things at a time usually when you're swapping just one piece of gear. Like maybe you're going from crit haste to verse mastery, and that's a bit of a heavy trade, but the stat weight doesn't really show that very well. So what I would suggest, instead of going stat weights, you know, look for gear that has haste with high eye level intellect, right? And then use Raidbot's tool called Top Gear to then check the gear versus each other, right? actually checking if this pair of gloves is better than this one is going to be way better than just looking at the stat weights. Highly suggest everyone do that. Stat weights can be very misleading. And again, if you're just pulling stat weights for Patchwork single target, that's all they're going to be good for, right? So there's a lot of problems with that. I would rather you run Top Gear on a few different fight styles to really get that answer to that question, right? And again, I do want to stress that SimC is only going to be as good as the question you're asking it, right? So if you want to optimize for Patchwork 1 target, it's going to give you the answers for Patchwork 1 target, right? You got to be careful about what you're doing. And now, before I end this video, I do want to give a kind of a large caveat here that this video applies to Shadow Priests pretty much exclusively. Myself, Sailor, Jarv in the Discord, and a few others have been working tirelessly to make our APL, which is basically like it tells the sim how to play the game, basically. We've been working tirelessly to make that thing as good as possible, make it work with several different raid events and movement and ads and all this stuff. But that is not common across every spec in the game inside of SimC. Some people just don't have the time to support that kind of depth of a spec to this degree. So you can't exactly use this advice for your alts. The support from there might be a little different than what you're expecting, or different than what we do for Shadow Priest, so keep that in mind. I will say that, you know, it's easy for us. We only have one spec. You know, someone like the Warlock maintainer has to do 3 specs, so, you know, I'm just going to put an open call out here. If you like this stuff or you think this is interesting, SimC is all open source. You can submit a pull request. There's a Discord I'll link below. Any help is greatly appreciated, guys. So I hope this video has helped you guys. This has really just been, you know, a chance to give you guys a glimpse into how to run Sims and best optimize your character. So I hope it's been helpful. Thank you so much to the patrons that are supporting me right now. I know it's been a little quiet lately, but I hope you forgive me, or we'll make some more stuff soon. The raid has been released, or at least at the time this video was uploaded, it should be out. So we will be doing a Castle Nathria look coming soon. So look forward to that. And if there's any other content that you guys want to see, please let me know. I've been asking the patrons as well to see kind of, you know, what we're going to do going forward. And that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.